Hey all, Topes here, back playing some more Planet Zoo, and welcome back to Zimba Zoo. So this is a little short episode. I thought I'd crack this one out for you guys, and it is looking at a bunch of backstage detailing that I'm doing. So we're continuing in the northern desert section. This is actually a little sort of subsection, I guess. We saw me do the porcupines, and I've added the sandcat habitat now. I think this is probably going to be called Desert Rocks or something like that, this area. But yeah, this is going to be a backstage building. This episode is going to have a couple of bits in it. Backstage building that's going to be housing the sandcats, and you've already seen me do some of it, use some of this building for the porcupines, but it's going to have a couple of other animals in it as well, which I'm not going to reveal yet. They're going to come in the probably in the next episode. So yeah, if you've seen my stuff before, I really love spending time adding details to backstage areas. So what I'm doing here, and I think I'll probably upload this to the workshop, but this is like a little cool room, or little cold storage room. So I quite like spending time thinking about all the little buildings, all the little spaces and things that zoos would need in their backstage. So this is like cold storage for food and things. So obviously there's a lot of food going on in this zoo, lots of animals to feed, so lots of food to store, and varying different types of food. So there's going to be, some of these animals are meat eaters, and some of them are veggies, so you're going to need all sorts of different things. So yeah, I thought I'd start with this little cold storage box. I've actually done this idea before, but this is a way better version of it, because the pieces we've got now just provide so much more, so much richer kind of builds and things. So yeah, built these shelves, putting some fruit in some boxes, various different things. You can see it's like these are the sorts of things you probably might have seen from, you see in like restaurants and stuff like that. But I'd imagine these probably exist. I have no evidence of this, but I'd assume, zoos must need to store their meat and things, right? So this is all going to be part of this area. Putting some barrels in. I did actually originally attempt to have this all have a keeper building underneath it, whatever those are called, the places the keepers go to actually make food. I thought I'd bury it underneath and have it that they could step down through this, but for some reason, and I've never tried this before, but the habitat is right on the outside wall of that space, and so it looks like you can't have a keeper access a staff building that's underneath a habitat. It looks like they just don't kind of use the path to get there. I don't know if it's something that the game does that doesn't really understand whether they're in the habitat or not. So yeah, that was a bit of a pain. So I've built a load of stuff underground here that I've ended up cutting out in the video. So I'm now moving on to trying to fill out some of this space, and you can see there's a little table over there that I've put in. I've put in what is supposed to be like a duct system, because obviously there's there's this cold storage unit, and it's going to need a whole bunch of things to vent it out. And as ever, I think I had someone ask me a while ago about custom roofs and things. One of the details I spend quite a lot of time on, when I'm creating any kind of building, really, any kind of interior space, is trying to have the roof look like it's actually supported. Because if you look at roof structures, and you look at buildings that have got exposed beams, you'll quite often see things that are supporting the roof, and we don't really get that very much in Planet Zoo. So I quite often spend time trying to make sure I'm adding in those support beams. So this building gets quite a lot of that eventually, and then we'll see it in this episode. I can't remember, but this is again just trying to add all these little details in, like piping and that sort of stuff. I've also started in this zoo, and I think I'll probably continue this, but this idea of this using kind of custom doors, creating my own custom doors, it actually started from this build and this episode, because one of the things that you always see with these sorts of cold storage rooms is that they have to have like a heavy sealed door. If you imagine like the door of your fridge, this is what they need to kind of look like. So I thought I'd have to create my own, and I thought, well, why not just have a big window as well? So actually the window ends up looking quite a lot bigger than this little one I'm creating. I've decided to take a little bit of a different tack with my videos, because I think one of the things that's always probably a bit of a pain for you guys, and is a bit of a thing that kind of hinders my channel, I guess, is just the frequency with which I get videos out. So I think I'm just going to probably do smaller builds. Well, I'm not going to do smaller builds. They're going to be still bigger builds, but they're going to be builds that you get to see more frequently. So you'll get more of these kind of shorter episodes where I'm showing you a chunk of work that's been done, rather than you having to wait kind of months and months to see it. You have to let me know if you kind of like prefer that idea, or you prefer the longer videos. The trouble is with the longer videos, they end up taking me a lot longer to produce, and you end up seeing it a lot less frequently. And actually what I end up doing is speeding up the footage so much in these speed build sections that it's a bit kind of overwhelming, and you only really get a very basic view of it. What I'm doing here, and again I think I'll probably end up uploading this to the workshop, but this is creating my own little custom cage set that I can use. You've seen me do this a whole bunch of times. I'm using these creating my own build pieces basically. So here I'm creating this little door section. I've already created some of the panel sections, and then you'll see me putting this all together. So this is the kind of unglamorous internal cage systems that are being used in areas that are off-site, out of the sight of the guests. And they're not like bad, but they're just much more basic and primitive. So spent some time creating some little like implied feeding access points and things like that for some of these animals, because the sand cats obviously are a carnivorous animal, and probably one that you don't really want to be in the habitat with very much. So yeah, here's a little kind of flap that thing down and feed the animal through the little gap that it leaves. And then, as I said, you'll see me kind of assembling all this into something I'm going to use to create the full cages for them. And the advantage of doing stuff like this, a good little tip for kind of backstage detailing, is this allows you to have reusability. So obviously the upfront work here that I'm putting in to doing this is quite heavy, quite a lot of me putting all this set together. But once I have it and I've saved it as a blueprint, it's something that I can use over and over and over again. And I can keep on expanding if I want to, and actually even use it in other zoos. So yeah, here's a little system that I'm using that lets you kind of slide the door open, and you can get into the habitat, or you can feed through that gap or whatever. And this is actually something I've done a couple of times. I've done this in another area of Zimba that you haven't seen yet. That's an elephant habitat. I've massively extended the elephant habitat that I had in here, or that I'd previously created. So you'll be seeing that at some point soon, and it will give me, from having these two sets, this mesh set, this cage set is quite lightweight, and then the elephant one is obviously a heavy duty version of this. So having both of those, I think is actually going to be really kind of useful for me. And this whole area of the zoo, this what am I calling it, Desert Rocks section, will all have then a sort of fairly similar front stage and backstage feel to it. So we're in the actual habitat now. So I thought I'd just, this is you've seen me assemble the cages. I thought I'd put a bit of detailing into where they might kind of get closed in at night. So putting you saw me putting like a little implied scratch pole in there for them, putting a little door here so that they can be shut away at night. And that ends up being a fairly basic kind of cute little internal space for them that they can come in. And actually I'm really pleased that the Sandcats use all of this area, as well as all of their all of the exhibit areas that you'd seen me creating last time. So if you remember from the last episode, I talked about and I had a little hatch door that I'd said was leading through to another sandcat area, what was going to be another sandcat habitat, because sandcats tend to only really want to kind of be in pairs, and zoos quite often will have multiple pairs or multiple animals that they can kind of separate. They don't like being in large groups, sandcats. So this is actually kind of a second sandcat habitat, I guess, but it's really small. And you'll see you'll see some of this actually in a later episode as well, because I'm kind of fracturing it off into separate pieces. So here's me putting a little implied door in as well. There's the previous sandcat habitat you can see that we're working around now, just picking up some of the details from that. And what this is going to give me is it's sort of just a little bit of an opportunity to experiment with a new idea. Again, using Caesar's amazing rock features. But I thought I would stretch the envelope a little bit on these and create a kind of a slightly more unique viewing opportunity for the guests to see the sandcats climbing through an area. So here's a little climb frame for them to come down, and there's a little section and a tunnel for them to go over. Little area that you can view them, and then there's going to be a little peepee hole. As you can see, the sandcat. Here we go. See the sandcats. There's me testing it out to make sure they can actually pass through, and they can. They do a little bit of jumping up backwards and forwards onto the log, so I've just got to adjust some of that. And then I thought I'd add some sort of implied bars in and things like that, so that so obviously the guests are protected from them. And then I turned on the railing system for this area as well. Put a bunch of foliage in so it kind of blurs in some of the edges and stuff like that. One of the things that I'm going to be doing is, if you've been watching me for a while, you'll know that quite often I have tour sections of the videos, and you'll hopefully have noticed that the last couple of episodes I haven't done that. I think what I'm probably going to do is finish this area off a bit more and then do a whole episode that just tours it all, because I think kind of ended up adding multiple tours into every one of these episodes probably gets a bit repetitive, and again, as I said, ends up meaning it takes me longer to get you a video out. This was a fun little idea. I thought just a little like novel peephole spot that you can look through and see the cats jumping down and off of the climbing frame. As I said in the last episode, this whole area is quite playful in the idea that there's little surprises of where you might see the animals and things. So that is coming up to the end of the episode, guys. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Toves. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as I said, hopefully it won't be too long before the next one comes out. Take it easy.